A lot of you have asked me about the tools I use to create my design and to run my design business, so I thought to create a separate video and to explain all of the tools I'm using as a designer. Hey designer, Alex here, welcome to the channel, and in this video, as I said, we are going to talk about the design tools I'm using as a designer to run my creative business, because there are many different tools out there that you can use, and I'm just going to tell you mine because I'm using many different tools and they are changing all the time, but some tools are staying in my toolbox all of the time. So to get us started, obviously we need design tools, and for design tools I'm using Adobe XD every single day. I also have some old version of Photoshop installed just if I need to change some images here and there, if I need to remove any background, but you can also use online tools such as remove.bg and they are working quite fine. But if you need still to use some kind of fine adjustments, then I would really recommend Photoshop because it's the king of the game basically for decades now. And those are the two tools I'm using mainly. Sometimes I'm using Figma just to test it out, just to see new features, just to see what they are publishing, because that way I know which are some features that Adobe XD team is going to push and vice versa if Adobe XD team launches something before Figma, because you always have to be in the loop. You can always use free versions of these tools if you're using some other tool, just to familiarize yourself and just to understand where the market is going at that moment. When you finish the design, obviously you need to hand off your designs to your developers, and for that majority of the times I'm using Zeppelin. Zeppelin is great because you can simply integrate it into Adobe XD. There is a native plugin, and then simply export all of your assets for developers. That way they can measure the distances, they can see the color palette you were using, they can see different fonts, different sizes, spacings, margins, paddings, and all of those things which developers need in order to create your design and make it live. So therefore I'm using Zeppelin because it's easy to create different teams, it's easy to integrate different developers on different parts of your design, and I really recommend that you can check it out. I'll leave the links to all of the tools I'm mentioning down in the description below so you can check it out. And if you never used Zeppelin, I really recommend that you do so because it's amazing. Another way that you can hand off your designs is natively. So Adobe XD gives you this option to export your designs, and there are many different file formats out there that you can use, from PNG, SVG, JPEG, PDF, and much more. You can always use those. And natively, how I export them, I export always both the artboards and pieces of artboards, so all of the assets inside of each particular artboard. I group them into separate folders. So for example, if we have a mobile app design, for example, and we have a login screen, we have a sign up screen, I will have two folders, so login folder and sign up folder for each of those screens. And especially if we have different sizes, so for example iPhone 8, iPhone 10, 11, 12, all of those sizes are going to be separate folders inside of that particular folder for the login and sign up screens. Then I export all of these assets into those folders, so therefore developers can know easily and access easily all of the sizes which they need and all of the screens which they need. You can also export this directly from Adobe XD in 1x, 2x, and 3x, but it's really difficult if you want to go back a touch and back a number. So for example, if you're designing for iPhone 10 and that screen has a notch on top, obviously, and if you want to design something for iPhone 8 which is a completely different screen and it doesn't have a notch on top, then it's really difficult to do that with native export options from Adobe XD at 1x, 2x, and 3x. You will have to design that screen separately and you will have to export it separately, because there is really no point if you're designing an iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 to export the iPhone 8 at 1x, 2x, 3x if the developers are not going to support it. When I finish my export and I have all of those assets separated into those separate folders which I mentioned, I always like to zip my files and send them via email to my clients or via Google Doc or Dropbox link or something like that, because that way they're going to easily be able to access them, file is not going to be too huge, because once you zip them, you can always reduce the file size of that zip file, and you can easily email it to your clients and to their developers. That way you can keep track of the communication of the files that you sent them, and they're always going to be able to access it directly from that email, and you can always check it out in your email conversation. For example, when was the time that you sent that version to your client, and vice versa, and you can always keep track as to how long was it before you send those files. Did everybody receive that? Did everybody saw the email, and so on. Next up, it's direct communication and chatting. And for chatting with my clients and developers, I like to use Slack, because you can create different Slack groups and you can put different people in those Slack groups. For example, if the development team has many different developers, then we can all jump into the Slack group and we can communicate that way. I also use Microsoft Teams and I also used Google Chats in the past, but I think the Slack is still king in this part of the business, and I really like their interface. I really like their ease of use, and I really like how everybody can get on board the Slack team, because you can easily invite people, you can easily kick people out of the group if they don't respect the rules. For example, I had that happen to me in the past, but you can always include different people and exclude different people from your Slack room, and you can always chat with them about communication on that particular project, and you can always keep track as to what is going on. Next up, we have design resources, and you will always have to use some kind of design resources, especially if you're working by yourself or as a part of a small team, because you cannot simply create icons, illustrations, templates, email templates, proposals, briefs, all of those things. Project pricing, for example, you cannot possibly create all of those things yourself, and even if you can, you cannot simply recreate the presentation. So you cannot recreate the mockups, for example, you cannot recreate some kind of a background, 3D shapes and so on. So for that reason, I like to use Envato Elements, and I use it for years now. It's really extremely simple to license items from Envato Elements, because you can simply create a project, license the item to that particular project, and then simply use it for that project. If you need to relicense it once again, you can simply click there and add it once again to that particular project or to a completely different project. There is really an ease of use there, and I extremely enjoy using Envato Elements because of its versatility. In one simple place you have everything you can possibly need, from fonts to music to videos to images, mockups, templates, everything you can possibly imagine. And I really like to use their 3D function as well, because it gives me the option to use those 3D models in exactly the same pose which I want, and I really like to use those features on websites I'm creating recently and on mobile apps as well. I would really recommend it, and I'm using it for my website design business, mobile app design business, but also for all of these YouTube videos that you're watching and my courses, because I'm also using music from Envato Elements and some video intros and outros, some indents, lower thirds, animations and stuff like that. So all of that is from Envato Elements, and as I said, for one simple subscription a year, you can use all of those things and not worry about licensing ever again. For my scripting, writing and note-taking, I like to use Notion. I used to use Google Docs, but Notion really gives you all of those options and possibilities that Google Docs does, but much more on top of it. You can create lists, you can create custom indents, you can create custom pages, completely different navigations, so all of those in-depth things really. So I like to use Notion when I'm creating my project. So I really like to keep track of where my project is. I like to create really simple pitch decks inside of Notion, so I can approach to my clients and offer them different packages, different pricing solutions and stuff like that. And also for my YouTube videos and my courses, I'm doing all of my scripting for my YouTube videos and courses inside of the Notion, and then I can simply scrap that off when I'm finished with it, and I can always access it via desktop, via laptop, via my phone, because it's cloud-based. And no matter where you are, if I have an idea, for example, for my my future project, for my future video, for the future course. I can always access it directly through my phone, for example. Simply write that down. You can also leave voice notes, which I found extremely helpful. You can attach videos, so I always like to pull up my camera and record myself. For example, if I remember something, then upload that video to that particular Notion file, and then I can simply access it later and remind myself what I was thinking at the moment. I also like to use voice notes, and I use them all of the time. Simply record a voice note with your phone. Every single phone out there has that option, and then simply upload it to that Notion project that you created, and simply listen to it later if you remember, if you need to remember something that you said, for example, a month ago, 2 months ago, or something like that. I also like to use Notion because you can indent all of these different icons, different images, and you can really create really custom pages in Notion that you cannot possibly do in Google Docs or even in Microsoft Word. For the email, I like to use G Suite because I'm used to Gmail, and I was using Gmail for years before I purchased G Suite. And G Suite really gives you this option to have a professional looking email while still using Gmail. So basically Gmail for business, and your clients are none of the wiser than just thinking that you're using some kind of a premium email service, which you are because you're paying for it, but you're using Gmail on the other side. So you have that available functionality of the Gmail that majority of us love and understand. So you can simply attach the files, you can create all kind of different text and file formatting, you can integrate it with your Google Docs, for example, so all of those Google services. And if you want to share a file from Google Drive, you can easily do that because once again, you're using Gmail, you're just paying for it. And I really like to use it because not that it's cheap, but that it's accessible, it's safe and secure, because Google is protecting you basically, and you can always use two-factor authenticator apps, and you can always keep your account safe no matter what happens. Because I have my account hacked in the past because I was using that default email that you get with the hosting provider, and that account got hacked. So I really have to think twice about what to do next, and obvious choice was to use Gmail. It's really not that expensive to use either. I think it's something like $5 a month. So it's really approachable. It's really easy to use, once again, because it's a Gmail, and you have all of these added benefits like extra storage space, extra administrators that can manage that account, password protection, and so much more. For meetings with my clients, I really like to use Google Meets, but majority of people out there today are using Zoom. But Google Meets and Zoom are really similar, if not exactly the same. It's really what people prefer. As I said, I really prefer Google Meet because once again, I'm using G Suite for business, and it's much simpler for me to integrate all of my team members and all of the people who are coming in. It's really easy to invite people, and because vast majority of people out there has Google accounts, it's extremely simple to integrate everything because it's all Google made. While Zoom, on the other hand, it's really simple, it's really great and easy to use interface. I don't like some features here and there, but it's easy to use and it gets the job done. When you're creating contracts, and I really recommend that you do, you really have to use some online options if you're not an accountant, if you're not a lawyer or a legal representative in your country, so you really don't know what you are doing. If you want, you can pay for other people to do that for you and to draft contracts for you every single time, or you can use an online service like Bonsai, and I really like to use that service because they're providing you with ready-to-use templates, for example, for graphic design projects, UI, UX design projects, particular app design projects, particular web design projects, and you can always jump in and change all of these things. For example, client's name, client's business name, your business name, client's address, the amount of money you're going to charge your clients on this particular project, project deadline, which types of things are going to be done in this particular project, usage rights at the end of the project. So what does the client get, and do you still retain some rights on that particular project, and so much more. So I really like to use Bonsai because it's extremely simple to do so. Also, they're giving you the option for your clients to directly pay you through Bonsai, so you can easily send them the contract and make that first payment at exactly the same time through exactly the same service. They're integrating Stripe, so if you don't have Stripe in your country, then you might want to look for some other solutions. But if you do have Stripe, I really recommend this because it's super simple for your clients to sign the contract. Everything is done online, so they can sign the contract and pay you that first amount that you requested for that particular project. There are many different benefits to using Bonsai, and I'm going to leave the link down in the description below so you can check it out if you're not familiar with this. And once again, I would always recommend that you start with the contract in mind, and that you always draft contract no matter how big or small your project is, because with contract in mind you have that peace of mind really about if anything is going to happen later at the end of the project. Sometimes on my projects I need to hire help and I don't want to hire full-time employees. I want to simply outsource that work. So for me personally, I don't really enjoy doing the logo design work, so I always try to outsource that logo design work to somebody who is better than me at that and who is going to do a much better job than me. So really I would like to outsource that to other designers also. For example, this contract drafting which I mentioned previously, or some simple things like, for example, content writing. I like to do content writing up to the point, and then I simply get bored and outsource the rest of it to some other designers or content writers. Or for example, if my client needs a social media strategy done for them, I would really like to outsource that. Video editing, I used to outsource that all of the time. Now I have a team member who is doing this for me, so they are doing this video editing for me, and I really like to expand my team in the future. But even when I do, I'm still going to outsource people, because for some tasks it's really not feasible to have a full-time employee, when those people who are going to be outsourced for that particular project are going to do much better job in much shorter time and obviously cost you much less money. For the outsourcing things, I really like to use Fiverr, and I also like to use Upwork sometimes. So those two services are the ones which I really recommend. And if you're planning to outsource anything for your business, make sure to test first. Make sure to create some sort of task for those people to solve, because those people in majority of cases are really bad offers, and they are really the only thing which matters to them is the money. They don't care about your project, they don't care about how to help you, they don't care about offering real solution, they just care about the money, which is extremely bad approach to business. And if you can take anything from this video, from me, from my channel, is that don't just care about the money, because nobody's going to want to work with you. Make sure to care about your client's project, make sure to care about helping them, because that's the whole point of a design, is to offering a solution to a real world problem that your clients might be facing. So once again, without going into too many details, and I can create a separate video about how I find critical workers on Upwork and Fiverr, I can create that video in the future. But for now, those two services are the ones which I'm using all the time, and I really found them helpful. And at the end, getting paid. You have to get paid at the end of the day. So two services I'm using all of the time are PayPal and wire transfer. PayPal for smaller amounts of money, and if that particular person who is sending the money doesn't have the business account, doesn't have the ability to go to the bank, for example, with events of last year, especially people really didn't leave their homes, didn't go to the banks, some banks were closed and stuff like that. So you really have to use online services. I used to use Stripe while I was able to. I'm not able to anymore because they had some limits which they imposed on third world countries, like they call it. So I had some issues with that. So I'm basically on PayPal and wire transfer. I really like to use wire transfer, obviously, because you can easily track the money. You can refund if necessary. They can refund you if necessary and stuff like that. You can always do that with PayPal, but you still have to take that additional step with going through the PayPal support to getting to that support member and stuff like that. So once again, wire transfers, if you can, are always your best way to go. So I really hope you learn about some new tools which you're going to use in your own business. And if you can take anything from this video, make sure to be contracts, make sure to draft your contracts and to use online tools like Bonsai, for example. I think they're really great, but you can find others if you don't enjoy Bonsai. Thank you for watching this video, and I really hope you found some value in it. If you did, make sure to press that like button. I upload new videos here on the channel every single week about design, passive income techniques, Adobe XD and much more. So if you're interested in content like that, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.